I'm now going to yield to the former chairman of the Trade Committee and our current chairman of the Health Committee on Ways and Means, Mr. Brady.
Chairman Nunes, first thanks for your leadership and all the new energy you bring to the trade agenda in Congress. Ambassador Punk, you're doing a terrific job, not merely in representing the U.S. negotiating agreements so critical to our economy, but the time you take in consulting with both parties in the House and Senate on the nuances, the politics, the dynamics, the details of these agreements. And I'm not complimenting you merely because your wife and daughter are in the audience today, but they do need to hear that you have a very broad support in the House, and we appreciate your work. Let me ask a broader question. You know, the Doha round has lapsed now for nearly 6 years. There is real progress on 21st century issues, from trade facilitation, moving these goods quicker, faster, cheaper across the borders for the benefit of consumers around the world. We're seeing progress in information technology, in services agreement, in environmental goods area. There are some who are, because of the Bali round, seem to believe the focus now should really go back to Doha. And this is not a good analogy, but it seems to me that after a dozen years, the Doha garden, for various reasons, simply isn't producing. But in services and facilitation and information technology and others, that, you know, I think we're seeing real growth, you know, real results in those areas. I'd like to see you and us as a country continue to focus on the garden that's growing, on the results that are producing for the economy we have today. I'd like to hear your thoughts on whether you agree on that approach or whether we ought to shift focus back to the Doha round.
Well, thanks very much, Congressman Brady, and I've very much appreciated the opportunity I've had to consult with you and your colleagues in the time that I'm back in Washington. It's very much informed our positions across a whole range of issues. But to answer your question directly about sort of the interplay between some of these plurilateral discussions in Geneva, like the ITA, TISA, environmental goods, and the broader Doha agenda, I very much agree that the place where we have vitality and energy in the room and a sense of like-mindedness among negotiating partners has been in the plurilateral discussions. And quite honestly, it's very refreshing after a long day in deadlocked discussions to step into some of these plurilateral negotiations and recognize that even if you're negotiating with people who might have a slightly different perspective, all of you are working towards the ultimate goal of a result in liberalizing trade. And so those plurilateral discussions are on their own track, and they will continue, and we will push them and lead in those discussions as we move forward. I do think that there is the potential for us to make progress on Doha, despite the fact that we're now 14 years into that negotiation. But I think one of the points that you made is really critical there, and I think the Chairman Nunes made a similar point. We can't simply keep going back to things that haven't worked in the past. I think about the Einstein maxim that, you know, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. There's been too much of that in Geneva. So Bali has given us a puff of wind in our sails, the first one in a long time in terms of a broad multilateral discussion. We have an opportunity this year, if we are willing, all of the members of the WTO, to wrestle with difficult questions like the appropriate role of emerging economies, to make progress on Doha. But we can only make progress if we address those issues very directly.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to downplay Doha. In fact, having broader agreements obviously I think would be better for the global economy. It just seems to me the work that's being done in the other areas actually builds confidence, creates a better environment, and provides some time where we can go back with more agreement on trying to grow that garden that's Doha. But right now we're really, I guess my point is, I think the progress we're seeing is important in those agreements. I think they help build the type of dynamics that allow us to tackle Doha in the future. I don't want to shift focus at this point where we're seeing that growth.
Well, we agree with that premise, and we will. The worst case scenario from our standpoint is for Doha to continue to drift. We think there needs to be resolution with Doha, and we are pushing for that pointed discussion now. And I agree with you on another point, which is I think that the plurilateral discussions have actually had a very virtuous impact on Doha, because they have demonstrated very clearly to the small number of countries that don't want anything to happen in Geneva that there are options there for those that are seeking to use the institution in a productive way.
Great. Thanks, Sebastian. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Brady. Now